this is Fundamental here, and today I have yet another Doctor Strange X-rated story. So, I apologize if I whisper a lot during this video. It's because everyone in my house is asleep, and it's 9:50 in the morning. They're very late risers. I'm a very big morning person, so please excuse the whispering. I hope it's not too distracting. I'll try and turn up the volume of my audio as much as I can, so you guys can hear what I'm saying. But this is a Doctor Strange X DeafReader story, and the title is simply called A Full Notebook, and we'll cover that a little bit later. But for now, let's get started. Stephen walked through the streets of New York, looking for the public library. Normally when he needed a book, he could just go through the sanctum, so it was rather strange to people like Wong for him to go to the public library. However, this particular day, he wanted to pick up a fictional book. When Stephen came into the library, he was surprised to see how empty it was. When he went further in, he spotted a girl a little younger than him, browsing around the shelves. He didn't pay much mind to it at first, but as he was browsing through the endless books, he kept noticing her peeking at him. Finally, she picked out a book. Stephen took a quick glance at the cover and saw it was dedicated to helping people with writing and grammar. Excuse me. The girl took a seat at one of the tables and began reading. Stephen eventually picked up a random book he found. The cover reminded him of a spell book. The first page of the book started with the simple words, "Poems." Curious, he took the book and went over to take a seat. He suddenly had the feeling that someone was looking at him, and he looked over. The girl quickly buried her face into the book. Stephen chuckled to himself and went over to her. "Hello." The girl waved lightly at him. "Mind if I sit?" She blinks and then gestures for the chair. He takes a seat in front of her. He opened the book and began reading some of the poems. As he did so, he noticed the girl peeking at him through her book. It was at that point he noticed the backpack on the chair she was sitting on. He looked back at her, and she was just staring at him. He chuckled. "What's your name?" Instead of saying it, she went to take something out of her bag. Confused, Stephen was about to speak, but was cut off by her holding her hand up. She then took out a notebook and began to scribble something down. "I'm your name." "I'm deaf," the notebook said. Stunned, Stephen looks at you with sorrow. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." You smiled and shook your head. "Don't worry. I can still read people's lips and even talk. I just choose not to do the latter." Stephen nodded slowly. He then giggled and began reading again. "You're wondering how I became deaf, aren't you?" No. Maybe." He smiled sadly and began to read on the next page. "I became deaf when I was around 10 or 11. At first, I just had trouble hearing, but by the time I turned 12, I was completely deaf. I didn't even use hearing aids because they just made it worse. Plus, I felt stupid for having to use it just to hear someone. With tutoring and such, I learned to read people's lips, and of course, I still know how to talk, but it's hard to do, especially after all this time." Stephen then asked the question, "What can you say?" "I'm not trying to pressure you into talking. I've just never met a deaf person before, so I'm curious." "I can say the basics, if you will. Hello, goodbye, thank you, stuff like that. I can speak if you're that curious," smiley face. "Well, if you'd like to talk, you may." She then nodded and spoke out a simple sentence. "Hello, how are you?" But the way she said it, you could tell that it was a bit hard for her. Stephen can tell that she didn't speak much at all in her day-to-day life, so it required more focus to speak. Of course, Stephen could say that this was just her. He had seen many people over the internet who were deaf and could speak really well. But this girl was just one who preferred not to speak. "How come you don't like talking?" She shrugged. She then went back to writing in the notebook. Because then people question it when I do speak. People assume that just because I'm deaf, I can't talk or read lips. I didn't learn sign language either because a lot of people don't know it. So I decided just to learn how to read lips and write. I'm sorry to hear that. Again, she shrugged. Why were you looking at a book for writing and grammar? I take it you're good at both because you probably write more than most. So I learned more. She giggled. You really like asking questions, don't you? Hey now, I'm just curious. I too, in a way, have a disability. Well, you know my story. Now I want you to know yours. Only if you answer my question. She then began writing. Hellen Keller was always one inspiration I never got over. I remember reading up on her millions of times when I was younger. I have a whole bookshelf on my area on my bookshelf dedicated to her books and other books about her. She became deaf when she was a very small child. It said that when her parents were speaking, she saw their mouths moving with no sound. Not even when she mouthed the words could she hear anything. It frustrated her. It was the same for me. When I found her work, I was so moved by the thought that someone like me could grow so much. I know she would have yearned to hear or see, even if she could only have one. But something deep down tells me that she didn't want to have either, let alone both. I still refuse to seek help for my hearing because I feel like that's not what she would do. And I also want to prove to people that people can, in fact, survive without hearing things. I want to write books just like Hellen Keller. Stephen was stunned. This girl had lost something so valuable, just like him, and she didn't even want treatment. When the crash first happened, he knew he had to get treatment. He wanted his old life back more than anything. But when he began surgery, he felt something change inside of him. A thirst for knowledge, not just to get his hands back, but to help people, protect people. Stephen began his own tale. When it came to the part where he told her about how he got his hands back and more, he knew she wouldn't believe him. But to his surprise, I believe you. Stephen chuckled. You're the only person who's ever said that to me when I tell them this. Well, we live in the same world as the damn Avengers. If we can live in a world where spiders rain from the sky and Norse gods are fighting crime, I wouldn't be too surprised if sorcery was real. The world is such a strange place, and the human mind can create the best works of art. The people who don't believe you have clearly forgotten the very world that they do in fact live in. Do in fact trust me when I say I believe you. After a few more hours of talking and a notebook completely used up of pages, it was time to part ways. Stephen had given her his number, and when she was about to leave, she turned and kissed Stephen on the nose. She giggled and then ran off to her home, excited to talk to him tomorrow. The end. It was so much fun doing this, and I also felt that this was a really good experiment for me because, typically speaking, I'd never really written this sort of stuff. I think I might have written a blind excerpt at one point, but I don't remember, honestly. I think I might have to delve into some of the older stories I've written, maybe in my notebooks I've written it. But the thing is that I may not be deaf, but I've always feared that I could become it. And the reason I fear that so greatly is because of the fact that music and hearing is one of the many things that keeps me sane. Music is the one thing that keeps me sane and keeps me from snapping at the world and ending up like a nate or something. And besides, like Hellen Keller, I first learned from many books and many people telling me this, but Hellen Keller had originally become deaf before she became blind. So, before she was blind, she remembers distinctly seeing many people speaking, and she's unable to hear it, and it frustrated her. She despised the fact that she couldn't even hear even whenever she mouthed the words. No sound came out, and she hated that. And at first it was going to make it so the reader does seek treatment from Stephen to get her hearing back, but I chose not to. I chose not to give her the treatment of, getting her hearing back because, first of all, unfortunately, as sad as it may seem, not every deaf person can, not every deaf person can continue to, most deaf people, or not most deaf people, but some deaf people don't go through life with getting their hearing back. They live their lives without their hearing. Whether it's all of their life or the majority of it, maybe even just some of it. It's a very sad thing, and I know that personally for me, if I was deaf, I would seek every ounce of treatment I could. But if there really was no way around it, then I would probably just delve into my work. Because I can still hopefully remember the sounds. And I have a really bad memory. And I even remember that if you go on the Wattpad page and you take a look at the cover image I posted for this, and even the very first photo in this video, I posted a photo of a cup of tea. And that is because this story wasn't even meant to be a Doctor Strange X DeafReader. I just came up with it all on the way. And you might even see that in the live streams I posted. And I even changed the title from writing it in tea to a full notebook. The reason is because at one point I was considering just having Steven meet the girl in the library. They both make a cup of tea and write. But I decided to change that, and I'm really glad I did, because that idea just seemed too tame and too boring. Now that I've got this story, this is probably one of the very, 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 very best works that I probably have ever done. I've never been more proud of a work like this one. And I really do hope that if somebody who is deaf comes across this story on Wattpad, I hope that they understand that no matter what, with or without their hearing, they can in fact live without it. And by the way, fun fact, when I said that spiders rain from the sky, that actually did happen in our world at one point. Look it up. It's real. So that's always the reason why I say that anything's possible. Because if spiders can rain from the sky, and if the Annabelle doll is real, think of what else is out there. Just think about that. Anyway, guys, I think I've rambled on for long enough. I'll try and make the audio as loud as I can, and hopefully you guys can hear it well. I'll have to go through a whole test of the whole video just to make sure. But, thank you all so much for watching. It really means the world that I could do this. Thank you all for doing this for me. I love you guys so much. This is Fan Murder, and I'll be seeing you all very soon. Bye-bye.